all of this that came after the killing of Charlie Kirk, all of this blaming they did this, they killed him, they martyred Charlie Kirk. All of this talk about the left and Democrats being at the tip of the spear in this attack against free speech, killing Charlie Kirk. Now, when the rubber hits the road and it's no longer rhetoric, the DOJ cannot find a link between leftist political attitudes, leftist policy, leftist ideologies, and the shooter. They can't get it done. Look at this headline from the Daily Beast. DOJ, the Department of Justice, can't tie suspected Kirk killer to the left like MAGA wants. Investigators have yet to turn up evidence that suspect Tyler Robinson was connected to any left-wing organizations. Bummer. Bummer for Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and by extension, Donald Trump and the rest of the ghouls who pledged vengeance and retribution for the killer against the Democratic Party. There's been talk of turning the Democratic Party, labeling it, designating it a domestic terrorist organization. Stephen Miller called us a radical domestic organization. Is that what he said? A domestic extremist organization. I got too many notes all over my desk because there's too much to talk about, too much to cover relative to them turning an unfortunate and horrific event to their political advantage. And that, what I just said, is what got Jimmy Kimmel fired. And, making fun of Donald Trump for not giving a shit about Charlie Kirk, while claiming that he was like a second son, the second son of Donald Trump said. Get a load of this. There is nothing to suggest that the suspected killer of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, was connected to any, quote, left-wing groups, according to investigators looking into the killing. 3 Justice Department officials working on the case spoke with NBC News, and one said, quote, thus far, there is no evidence connecting this suspect with any left-wing groups, unquote. They added there is, quote, every indication that this was one guy who did one really bad thing because he found Kirk's ideology personally offensive. He wasn't Antifa, even though that's not an organization, that's an ideology. He wasn't Democratic Socialists of America. He wasn't the Democratic Party. He was just one guy who didn't like Charlie Kirk. The officials also voiced that it would be difficult to bring federal charges against Robinson, as Robinson allegedly committed the crime in Utah and is a resident of the Beehive State. Furthermore, Kirk was an influencer activist and not an elected official. The Justice Department spokesman officially declined to comment on the case as an ongoing investigation. That's interesting. Anytime they want that journalists want follow-up on the things that have been said by the Department of Justice officials and investigators, they clam up. They only want to give what they want to give. They only want to read this questionable text exchange between purportedly, ostensibly between Tyler Robinson and the roommate. They want to give all the information that's going to suit their narrative so the dipshit governor of Utah can go out there, a man who once pledged to protect the trans community, who's now out there demonizing them on a daily basis. Just another elected liar, Republican Mormon. Disgusting, these people. From Jason Chaffetz to Mike Lee to Spencer Cox, jackass extraordinaire, governor of Utah. Kirk's murder is being used by the Trump administration to threaten crackdowns on left-wing groups. White House Deputy Chief of Staff vowed vengeance. White House Deputy Chief of Staff, that's Stephen Miller, by the way, vowed vengeance on the left on the first episode of the Charlie Kirk show since the assassination, saying left-wing organizations amounted to a vast domestic terror movement. Quote, with God as my witness, We are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people, Stephen Miller told Vice President J.D. Vance, who was guest hosting Kirk's podcast. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name. Yet, the DOJ, that same Department of Justice, cannot find a link between Tyler Robinson and any left-wing organization. Cry your buckets of tears, you seething cowards. Trump also voiced his desire to label Antifa a domestic terror organization. It is unknown how the Trump administration intends to crack down on left-wing groups. Antifa is not a formal organization, but rather an ideology that is associated with some small activist groups. Antifa does not have a leadership structure or base of operations. That's because Antifa stands for anti-fascist. Aren't you anti-fascism? If so, I guess you're Antifa. Right-wing groups have been responsible for over 10 times more terror attacks than left-wing groups since 2002, according to a study conducted by the ADL. The Justice Department recently found similar numbers in its own study. It recently scrubbed that study from its website, which I talked about last week. Look, this isn't going to stop them, certainly. This news that they are unable to find linkage between left-wing groups and the suspected killer, it's not going to stop them. They're still going to go after the Democratic Party. They're still going to try to designate you as a domestic terrorist if you're a member of the Democratic Party. They're very likely, I mean, look, where are we going to be in 6 months? But they're trying to, if they do designate the Democratic Party as a domestic terror organization, they will be able to stop political donations. They'll be able to stop fundraising. They'll be able to indict and arrest people who are Democrats. And that's what they wanted to do the entire time. Donald Trump has signaled this in posts after post after post after post during the election, that people who donated to Kamala Harris will be held accountable up to and including jail, he said. So, I mean, come on. Anyway, I want your opinion on this. I invite you to this conversation. We can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it. Please do that. You can also call the voicemail line and leave me a brief voicemail. Leave them brief, please. 714-576-4054. And of course, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. If Google Voice is cutting you off because you spoke for 3 minutes, that's too long. Because remember, I gotta listen. It takes a lot of my time, the beginning of my day as I drink my coffee, to listen to voicemails. Anyway, I want to hear them, but yeah, do me a favor, keep them brief. If you want to help support this work, you want to help produce these videos with me, reaching millions of people, sometimes tens of millions every single month. I guess now that we're on Facebook, go follow that Facebook page. It's certainly tens of millions of people. I would love to have you help me produce this content. Click the join button below this video on YouTube, or just go to my channel, click the join button, become a channel member for $2 a month. As I lose my place in my head. Fantastic. Big Sunday here. Or you can go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast and help support this work there. $2 a month goes a long way if I'm able to marshal the size of my large and growing audience. If 1% were to take part in $2 a month, man, we could hire correspondents. This could be a vastly different show. I would appreciate your participation very much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. Take care of one another.